All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this village board meeting to order. We're meeting virtually tonight on Monday, March 15, 2021, because it is still not practical or prudent to meet in person. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask if you'd all please rise and join the village board in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the
and to the republic
for which it
stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
justice for all.
Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee LaBedz,
Here.
Trustee Scaletta,
Here.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Here.
Trustee Padovani, Trustee Tinaglia,
Here.
Trustee Canty,
Here.
Trustee Baldino,
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Here.
President Hayes.
Here. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We've got 3 sets to approve tonight. The first is from the joint meeting with the Park District Board on February 20, 2021. Any changes or passes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Canty, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Trustee
Pass.
Tinaglia, passed by Trustee Tinaglia. Seeing nothing else, roll call.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Next are the minutes from the committee of the whole meeting from March 1, 2021. Any changes or passes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Next are the village board meeting minutes from that same evening, March 1, 2021. Any changes or passes?
Move approval. Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by Trustee Baldino. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Next is the approval of the accounts payable, and I call on Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I move approval of the warrant register for the date of March 15, 2021 in the amount of $1,765,014.58.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Rosenberg, seconded by Trustee Scaletta. Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes. Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. There are no recognitions or presentations tonight, so we'll move into public hearings. And we do have a second public hearing tonight on the substantial amendment to the 2019 Annual Action Plan and amendment to the 2020 Consolidated Plan for the CDBG CV3 grant. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
Second.
Motion to open the public hearing by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Baldino. Roll call.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. So we are in public hearing. Mr. Ecklouse, do you have any comments, or Mr. Perkins?
Mr. Perkins, I believe, is going to introduce this one.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. As the mayor mentioned, on March 8th, the village had the first public hearing relative to the additional CDBG COVID funds that we'll be receiving. We will be receiving $383,860. In order to receive those funds and allocate them and use them for COVID-related purposes, the village needs to amend the 2019 annual action plan. We need to amend the 2015 to 2019 consolidated plan to change the economic development goal to a higher priority. And we have completed the first 5-day public hearing phase of this. And the additional item that needs action that is needed is to amend the village's fiscal year budget to allocate the additional $383,000 as revenue, and also the proposed and recommended expenses. Staff has recommended that approximately $241,000 of these funds be allocated to agencies that have suffered during the pandemic to provide relief to customers and clientele that they provide services to. These are everything from daycare to helping accommodate the homeless in area hotels and things of that nature. And then we're proposing $130,000 towards a forgivable loan for small businesses, up to $5,000 of a forgivable loan if those businesses retain an eligible employee. And at the last public hearing, we spoke about having the Arlington Economic Alliance meet and discuss and bring back more specifics on that particular loan program. And then $12,000 towards administrative costs. So at the conclusion of the public hearing, there is an item next on the agenda dealing with those 3 specific recommendations. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, but the purpose really is to see if there's any additional public comment.
All right, any questions or comments from the board first? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the audience under the public hearing portion of the agenda? All right, I see none. Charles, did we receive anything in writing from the public in the last week?
I'll ask Nora Boyer. I'm not aware of any written communication that we've received.
No, we didn't receive any comments.
Okay. All right, if nothing else then, do we entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
By Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Rosenberg. Roll call.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
yes,
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Randy, just to clarify again, are we taking the motions necessary to approve all of this now or after the Metropolis discussion?
What I would suggest is, because the two, typically we report out items, motions made in a COW meeting as report outs. Because the motion for approval of the budget is so similar, it's a little bit redundant. The motion that has actual action is item C under old business. And so if the board decided to forego item A that has no impact on what is actually being approved, it's just a formality. And so you could talk about this item first, you could talk about Metropolis, but we would suggest that you remove item A and proceed with item C.
All right, why don't we do that now? So if I could take a motion, if I could entertain a motion to take item C out of order, and we'll entertain and conclude the discussion on this item now.
So
Everybody
moved.
understand
So
what we're
moved.
doing? Trustee Canty is making the motion, and Trustee Baldino made the second. Roll call.
Trustee Canty,
yes,
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. And since Trustee Scaletta made the motions at the committee of the whole meeting, John, you want to make the motions now for approval?
Yes. I would move now, as I did on March 8th, to recommend to the Village Board to approve the proposed substantial amendment to the 2019 Annual Action Plan that allocates the CDBG-CV3 funds. The proposed amendment to the 2015 through 2019 Consolidated Plan to change the priority level for the existing economic development goal in the plan from low to high priority, and the amendment to the 2021 Village of Arlington Heights budget to include $383,860 in the CDBG-CV revenue in account number 215-0000-41148-00 and the CDBG-CV budgeted expenditures under accounts under the CDBG program and account 215-4102-522-4181.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee Rosenberg. Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Well, thank you again to Nora for your great work on this, as always, and we move forward. So thank you all. Next item under old business is the second motion coming out of the committee of the whole meeting on March 8, 2021. And I call on Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I would move now, as I did at the committee of the whole meeting on March 8th, to recommend that staff continue to work with the Metropolis Theater concept on Eastman Street between Arlington Heights Road and Evergreen.
Second.
There's a motion by Trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by Trustee Baldino. Any other questions or comments from the board? I understand that there was a question submitted in advance from the audience. Mr. Recklaus, are you familiar with that?
Yes, there was. There was was that under citizens to be heard? Is that what you're referring to, Mayor?
No, I thought there was some question submitted on the Metropolis item.
Yes, there was an individual that inquired on it, but what they were looking for was basically they wanted assurance that there would be some opportunities for feedback on this process from neighbors in the area, and opportunities for them to learn about how this was going to work, and if it didn't work or caused too much noise, that there would be recourse for them. And I know Mr. Keefe and Ms. Ebish are here tonight from Metropolis, and I know that they were prepared to talk about that if the board would entertain it.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. Mr. Keefe or Ms. Ebish, if you're ready, why don't you go ahead? Brooks, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Yes, we have many pieces of precautions in place, specifically surrounding sound and traffic. I believe those are all things that will have potentially changes over time based on the things we learn as the weather changes, as we hope our entertainment becomes more popular throughout the summer as well. So we are always very concerned about being the best of neighbors, because that's how we do well also in this community. So we would absolutely welcome the feedback and work with people to make that a very good relationship between both of us. We've talked before as well about working with restaurants as well as neighbors to have this be a good experience for all of us. And of course, we'll go out of our way to actually meet with folks during the process. But as we'll be there Thursday, Friday, and Sunday nights, or Sunday matinees, I should say, you're also welcome to come and seek us out. Joe or I will be at every single one of those performances.
All right, thanks, Brooks. And Mr. Keefe, I know you can't resist an opportunity to speak to an audience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. There are so many little shops over in that area that we want to make certain that we can support, along with our show, Little Shop of Horrors, which will be opening May 6th under the tent. So we hope that we do intend, Brooks is very clear on this, we do intend to meet with every person that has a concern. We are doing decibel readings at 50, 150, and 250 feet. And we are going to measure that so that the decibel readings at 250 feet are not louder than the ambient noise in the area. We have our technicians working on this. Bill Franz, our excellent production manager, is a specialist in audio. We are using sound attenuation around the tent as well. It will be open to the south and the east sides, as you know, during performances to permit open air. The south side is the garage and the east side is Arlington Heights Road. And Arlington Heights Road is about 150 feet to the east of the that opening of the tent. The north and the west sides will be closed, and those will be will supplement with acoustic curtaining and also with targeted speakers that will reside toward rather than flow out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keefe. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Anything else from the board? Trustee Tinaglia.
Real quick question for Mr. Keefe, Joe. When Little Shop of Horrors is over, will you be handling the sound volume your way, or you'll be handling it?
I'm sorry, pardon me. I should have said, yes, we're going to handle it my way, if that's okay. But you'll be there, Mr. Trustee, to make sure that the Sinatra is exactly the way it should be.
Okay, and Trustee Canty had a question?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to once again thank staff and thank the Metropolis. I wasn't able to be there last Monday, but I really wanted to thank everybody for their efforts at being creative with our partners here in the community. I think this is a really interesting concept. I'm excited to see how it comes out to be.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yeah, yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes, well, congratulations, Joe and Brooks, and good luck to you. Break a leg as you begin your planning and execution of this very exciting opportunity. So good luck. All right, there is no other old business. I realize that I did skip over citizens to be heard. Are there any members of the audience that wish to address the board on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we did have one question or comment submitted in advance, and I'd ask if the clerk would read that into the record. Becky?
Yes, Mayor Hayes, we received one comment from Melissa Kayer. She writes, will the village avoid scheduling multiple board and commission meetings at the same time? Today, there is a Board of Health meeting, Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, and a Senior Citizens meeting, all overlapping with the Village Board meeting.
Mr. Recklouse, can you address that?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. You know, we do our best to avoid conflicts with commissions, but when we have 15 boards and commissions, it's very difficult to schedule meetings where we don't have an occasional overlap. Under normal circumstances, we've got multiple meeting rooms in this building, and we do from time to time have meetings at the same time as one another. Generally, we try to avoid having meetings on Monday evening other than village board and committee of the whole meetings. But again, sometimes schedules don't allow that. And so, you know, as we're transitioning to more of a normal situation. We'll probably see a little bit more of a normal pattern, but we just can't guarantee that we won't have multiple meetings on one evening, just given the volume of work that's done.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Ecklaus. There are no other citizens to be heard, and so we'll move on in the agenda to the consent agenda. Are there any members of the board who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, any members of the audience wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? And seeing none there as well, any members of the board wish to vote no or pass on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Tinaglia, seconded by Trustee Scaletta. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Moving on to new business, we do have one item to consider tonight. That's a request for an amendment to the PUD ordinance and variations by Hamilton Partners for the property located at 703-709 and 713-723 West Algonquin Road. Is the petitioner present or a spokesman for the petitioner?
Yes.
All right, that's Mike Waterleck. And Mike, if you could just introduce yourself and your relationship or position within the organization.
So I work for Hamilton Partners and we are the developer.
Okay, thanks. And why don't you go ahead and proceed, and then we'll have the staff's comments thereafter.
So on behalf of Hamilton Partners, I'd like to thank the village for its attention as we seek to complete the final remaining portion of our development at 703 West Algonquin Road. Since we last met in 2018, we've had the good fortune of signing 3 leases in the first phase of construction. The first lease was with Tyke USA, a global auto parts distributor. The second was with ABI Systems, a Minneapolis-based technology firm with 29 locations around the globe. We signed our third and final lease for the property at the end of 2020 with Pepsico Frito-Lay, which brings us to why we are before the Board of Trustees today. The design that was approved in the original PUD application was a 330,720 square foot distribution building with 294 parking spaces along the northeast and southern portions of the property, and 68 truck dock doors along the western portion of the property. It was designed to accommodate between 3 to 6 tenants and to be fully constructed in mid-2021. The proposed amendment to the PUD would consist of a 192,730 square foot facility with a total of 26 truck dock doors, 16 delivery van doors, 190 automobile parking spaces, and a fenced-in area consisting of truck parking, delivery van parking, and a freestanding building for vehicle maintenance. We would complete this by October of this year. If approved, our 15-acre property at 703 West Algonquin Road would then be fully leased. I'd like to walk you through the site plan. Frito-Lay currently occupies the 50,000 square feet of the southernmost portion of the existing property, where they have already made a multi-million-dollar investment into the facility. If approved, we would then expand the building approximately an additional 50,000 square feet to the south. The western and eastern portions of the building expansion mirrors exactly what was previously approved. The car parking required for Frito-Lay's employees is located on the east side of the property. The western portion of the property, again, mimics the original site plan with truck loading docks designed to accommodate traditional over-the-road trucks. The southern loading docks within the fenced-in area, in contrast, are designed for delivery vans. Moving south from the delivery van loading docks is a combination of delivery van and truck parking, as well as the freestanding vehicle maintenance building, which is located right here. Gate egress to the very southeast will be exclusive to Frito-Lay passenger vehicles, while gate egress along the western portion of the property will be restricted to trucks at the southern gate and delivery vans to the northern of the two western gates. As a developer, one of the greatest changes we have observed as a result of the ongoing pandemic has been the exponential growth of e-commerce and last mile type delivery services. Industrial real estate is the healthiest among all real estate sectors nationwide. E-commerce and last mile distributors have experienced the greatest growth within the real estate class. The shopping habits of consumers has changed almost overnight with no indication of regressing to the old norm at any time in the foreseeable future. With this change in consumption comes a need for a new type of facility. We believe that what we have submitted as a proposed amendment to the PUD is that exact facility. The fleet of over-the-road tractors and trailers of the past has in large part been replaced by smaller delivery vans, which require more area for parking and less area for building coverage. One of the benefits of this new industrial use is smaller vehicles with lighter loads, which decreases the impact on village infrastructure and local traffic. We believe that demand for this type of facility will only grow over time, which will strongly position this property for many years to come. The benefits associated with this change in use are vast. According to the latest available employment statistics, unemployment in the Chicago, Naperville, Arlington Heights area has more than doubled from 3.3% to 8.9% year over year from December of 19 to December of 20. As an employer, Frito-Lay will have approximately 100 employees working in what will be the second largest distribution center in North America for them. Of the 100 employees, approximately 50 will be white collar jobs, while approximately 25 will be new employment positions altogether. All said, just beyond the job creation, the benefits to the community will be vast as Frito-Lay's approximately 100 employees and delivery drivers dine out and shop in Arlington Heights on a daily basis. Additionally, as previously stated, the village stands to benefit from an impact standpoint. An analysis of the maximum truck traffic that Frito-Lay might generate versus what we were originally approved for represents a 40% decrease from 87 daily trips to 54. This reduced trucking activity promises to decrease costs associated with maintenance of not only the village's infrastructure, but of the access drive that we share with Weber Packaging. Also of note is that over half of this traffic will occur in non-peak hours between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., further alleviating the traffic on both the village roads and the local shared access drive. The last benefit is the timing of occupancy and the tax revenue associated. As has previously been stated, Frito-Lay currently occupies 50,000 square feet at 703 West Algonquin Road. Upon the expansion of the building, Frito-Lay's tenancy and the real estate taxes generated will increase accordingly. Alternatively, if this project is not approved, our most realistic projection of full occupancy of the building that is approved would occur in the first quarter of 2023, which would deny the village of much needed tax revenue over that time period. Lastly, it has been brought to our attention that there are concerns regarding some of the truck movements on the shared access drive. We would like to stress that we share these concerns. We agree that in no event should any vehicle associated with either party trespass onto the neighboring property or park on the access drive. Both Hamilton partners and the offending property have reached out to Weber Packaging to address these concerns and to attempt to find an equitable solution. We acknowledge that these events have occurred, but it is important to stress that in no way it is it indicative of a flaw in design. Instead, it has been the undisciplined driving of a few truck drivers. Over the past couple weeks since the Plan Commission meeting, we've been in regular communication with Weber Packaging, and much to our delight, we've been told that that issue has ceased over that time period. We will continue to work with all tenants to ensure that the truck movement study, which is on the screen now, is the way that trucks utilize the access drive as we move forward. We appreciate your consideration. Like us, we hope you'll see this as an exciting opportunity for the village to complete this development, which will in turn actually lower the impact on village infrastructure from what was originally approved, bring 100 jobs to the community, and increase the real estate tax base within the community. And we look forward to your feedback.
All right, thanks, Mr. Waterleck. Mr. Perkins.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I will just bring up a screen share and walk through the zoning actions that are requested. So they are seeking an amendment to the plan unit development was previously approved in 2018, and 5 variations. They're fairly small in nature, a small setback variation on the southern portion of the property, a couple of landscape variations, and then 2 variations for the accessory building, and then a variation for the fence along the tollway. That staff asked for the fence to be taller than a minimum 6 feet so that it could provide proper screening for the trucks that are parked in the proposed parking storage area. This is an aerial that illustrates the phase 1 development on the top of the aerial with the existing vacant office building to the south, and then the Weber Packaging Solutions facility on the west. Both of these properties share a shared driveway for ingress and egress to the property. 22 feet of that driveway is on Weber Packaging property, and 22 feet is on the Hamilton property. This was the plan that was just presented to you that was approved in 2018. And this is the proposed plan with the parking area on the south. There is a condition from the original 2018 approval that requires the Hamilton to accept the additional property should Weber transfer it to Hamilton, the area that's highlighted in yellow. That was part of a 2002 agreement that additional property in detention should be transferred from Weber to this property owner, which is now Hamilton. The differences in the site plan were previously explained, so I won't go over those again, but it is a reduction in square footage and a reduction in the truck loading areas, but an increase in van parking on the site. So this is the site on the south. The little red area that I just highlighted, there's a very small setback variation that I referenced to allow for 2 parking spaces to be provided for truck storage. These are highlighted in green. These are the landscape variations to not provide landscape islands. Normally, staff would not support a request like this, but we did get additional landscaping and additional landscape islands in lieu of these being provided. The area being highlighted now in orange, this is the accessory building. It's a 2-bay vehicle storage just for the Frito-Lay vehicles to be maintained, and it's for minor vehicle repair only. There will be a 10-foot tall fence that I referenced along the south of the property. And this is the landscape plan. Along the south, the tollway side of that fence will be a heavy landscape area, 54 evergreens will be planted in that area. Also is proposed a landscape barrier along the west property line where the 2 gates will be shown. That's the top of your slide. We did require Hamilton Partners to landscape that, to set the back of the fence. It's a decorative fence with 2 gates, to set that on the back of that landscape island So it starts to channel traffic better and separate traffic between this property and the Weber property. In 2018, the issue of truck movements backing into the site was discussed. We did come up with a concept plan similar to this. This was prepared by staff. The area highlighted in red shows some landscape barriers that could be installed along the western edge of the shared driveway on Weber's property. There could be landscape to try to preclude and prevent or limit truck movements onto their property instead of staying on the shared driveway. Sam Hubbard from my office had a meeting last week with Doug Weber to talk this through. They do have a few changes. My understanding is they're in general agreement of this approach. And one of the conditions is to require Hamilton Partners to install those landscape barriers to try to preclude and prevent those truck movements going onto Hamilton's property. I'd also like to highlight condition number 2 here. This requires the 22 feet of the driveway on Hamilton's property to be repaved. It does require approval from Weber Packaging as it's a private shared ingress-egress easement, and Packaging controls that easement on their responsibility for maintaining and repaving it. But the original approval did show Hamilton repaving their half of the driveway, and also there's a condition still in place in the original approval that requires Hamilton to repave the 22 feet on Weber's property as well, also subject to Weber providing that approval. So the Plan Commission did vote 9-0 to recommend approval. There are the 7 conditions in addition to ones that still apply from 2018. And I'd be happy to get into any of those specifics or answer any questions that the board may have.
All right, thanks, Mr. Perkins. Questions or comments from the village board? All right, why don't we do have Mr. Weber from Weber Packaging who wanted to make a presentation. Perhaps we should hear from him before we take questions from the board. So, Mr. Weber, why don't you go ahead and make your presentation at this point?
Good evening. This is Doug Weber. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Wonderful. Yes, my name is Doug Weber. I'm president of Weber Marking Systems, doing business as Weber Packaging. I'd like to just share some videos of my concerns regarding this new modified PUD. It really changes the dynamics of the shared road quite a bit. So I have 2 concerns and just an observation. One is on the southern end of the property is trucks pulling out, forcing my employees having to stop. This is, it is a risk. Mr. Waterlick is correct. We did have some conversation regarding their trucks backing into my guest area, but this is a concern where they're just, they're pulling out in front of traffic. And I'll get into why the modified PUD is quite different. This is one I really want you to pay attention to, if you don't mind. The original PUD was really simple. Trucks come off Algonquin onto Meyer Drive, onto the shared access road, and they back in. What you're seeing now is from the depot, which 98 trucks is getting to be an Amazon distribution center. They have to do a U-turn. And that's a big concern, is where within the shared access drive do they do the U-turn? And if you notice in the upper left-hand corner, to the best of my knowledge, that is the only position a semi with a trailer can do a turn to get into position to back into the loading dock. So they'll turn around. They do have room at this corner. There's another video I show that shows that this could be problematic. It then goes back on the Hamilton property. It moves towards the shipping door. And if you notice, there's a study that RWD did for the original PUD. And it's really not worth the paper it's written on. I learned something about traffic studies. They go all the way across the private road. And then they back in. You know, I mentioned to Mr. Perkins, I don't want to be here all night showing videos. So you'll notice here, you know, all of a sudden trucks, cars are going around the truck, going on my property because it's blocking the middle of the road. And I don't think that's fair. There is a shared easement. This is just to kind of give you an overview. The private road is 44 feet wide. It's 0.2 of a mile. Weber's on the right, Hamilton Partners on the right, on the left, and it kind of gives you an aerial view of the property. And keep in mind, this is big. This is 98 trailers and 74 vans. My experience, something like this is in a fully enclosed facility, not on a shared access drive. But that's the Northwest Tollway right there. This is the yellow line there. That's the property line. This is common. You know, they're very close to my property. They did hit full disclosure, a supplier did hit one of my ComEd poles, but they're all the way across impeding my employees. We are in COVID. Those that can work at home are. It's not too difficult of a problem. This is similar situations I showed 2 screens before, but watch this. If in the upper left-hand corner, there's a truck there, how is it going to turn around without getting on the private access drive? It can't. You'll notice when it gets there, the truck is impeding this driver from staying on and not blocking. And this is the worst. This is the worst corner you could possibly pull out in front of the private road, just due to the blind turn that they have. So it cannot turn. And you know what a lot of drivers are doing is they're doing U-turns in the middle of the access road. But you'll notice that it comes all the way around, and it is now impeding traffic on the access road. Now, one comment I've heard from Hamilton Partners attorney, and he's right. They have easement rights. I have easement rights. I can cross the road. They can as well. But with this new modified PUD, you know, 98 semis and 54 vans really does create a traffic problem in my eyes. And I think there's an argument that this is an overburdened easement. And you'll notice here, you know, again, it's a private road. I can't call the Arlington Heights Police Department. You'll see a car come down, they're being blocked, they're gonna go on my property and go around the semi. Happens quite a bit. So I do see the modified PUD is creating a lot of trouble for me in my business. That's my presentation. I appreciate the time, and those are my concerns going forward.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weber. Let's go back to the village board then. Trustee Rosenberg had questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just curious, for this question for Mike. Mike, the trucks that are coming out of Frito-Lay, are they less kind of weight intensive than a normal semi because of the fact that they're carrying chips and things like that?
That is correct.
Those roads. I'm sorry.
That is correct, and we have not pursued a study on that. But generally speaking, with just you know, based on some peripheral questions we've had with Frito-Lay, those trucks will be significantly lighter than your average tractor trailer.
Okay. So Charles, from the standpoint of the requirements, you know, for the project, is there, I guess I'm asking if there's any violations that really are incurred as a result of the project that's set up here with the PUD how the configuration is. Is there any alternative that could be looked at from the standpoint of the turns and how the trucks are coming in and out of the loading docks, that under normal situation would not be allowed?
Yes, Trustee Rosenberg. I mean, first of all, the property is zoned M2. That's our heaviest, manufacturing district. So this use is a permitted use. The only variations that they are seeking are the ones that I referenced for landscape islands, fence height, and then the accessory building for the maintenance. So the main building itself is not seeking any variations. We did ask Hamilton Partners if they could explore putting the truck docks on the south inside the internalized, parking and truck storage area, and putting the van parking on the west side of the building. But they indicated that that was problematic for Frito-Lay's operations inside of the space. By doing that, at least some of the trucks would have then been circulating on the site, in the south of the building, on the Frito-Lay exclusive area. Part of the problem is, bringing the trucks out of that storage area and then to back into the loading docks. They have to kind of turn around and come southbound, so the driver isn't trying to back into that dock on their blind spot. That's why they're doing that movement. Unfortunately, it is, a private easement. So, the kind of zoning functions that the village has are whether the changes are, appropriate. The amendment to the PUD, it's less square footage. Yes, they do have truck storage, but certainly is less square footage, less loading and truck docks. So from that point of view, it's less intense than what was previously approved. The variations are under the control of the village, and in our opinion, those are, make the project better, not worse. Kind of controls and actions that the village has. We have added a number of conditions to require the driveway to be repaved, all of it, even the half on Weber's property. So that would relieve Weber of that burden. We've also come up with that plan for landscape barriers along the west side of the driveway on Weber's property to try to prevent those trucks and vehicles going onto Weber's property. So those are the things that we can do to try to facilitate this. It does entail cooperation between both Hamilton and Weber to make that happen.
So you're saying, in your opinion, this should, I guess, help alleviate, the turning radiuses of the trucks, preventing them from crossing that easement then?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it helps the turning radiuses, but it will prevent vehicles in those areas going onto Weber's property. If there's a landscape barrier, the trucks would then, literally have to drive over a landscape median. It's more likely the drivers will make the maneuvers to not do that. So that would help, and would help channel traffic. It really is onto the tenants to kind of work with their drivers to make sure they're not blocking the driveway, and that they can, to make those movements and back into those loading bays.
If there was that end area that was shown in the video blocked off in any way, would that, in your opinion, help the trucks be able to turn more, where you would just create, the area just for the trucks turning in there internally to help them maneuver?
Well, that would be a question for Hamilton Partners, Trustee Rosenberg. I think the north tenant, some of their loading areas, if they are not in use and can be blocked out, and it could be striped as a proper turning area, then that would help. I don't think all of those truck bays, truck docks on that north tenant are being used right now, but I'd ask Mr. Woodalek to respond to that.
Mike?
I guess I don't completely understand the question.
I guess I'm asking, is there is there a way to block off some of the trailer spaces that would allow the trucks to turn easier rather than cross the easement to go up and down the trailer area there?
Right. So on the north end of the property, which is where the truck loading docks will be, I think the village's concern and the Weber's concern is founded in what the experience has been since Frito-Lay has moved in. One thing I'd like to note is that all the videos you saw were from the middle of January, and now we are here in the middle of March, and the situation is vastly improved, just as a function of familiarity with the drive and from just education of the drivers. The other point I'd like to make is I understand that the majority of the issues have been in the lot to the south. Right now, the maneuver on the south end of the access drive is very difficult because there is not proper area or egress from the temporary trailer parking lot. That those movements will be vastly improved just by the creation of egress that's exclusive for both the delivery vans and the trucks. On the north end of the property, all the truck movements that you've seen since the videos that Mr. Weber's shown are consistent with all of the truck movements that were submitted to the village during the original PUD approval. So I think really just the familiarity with the property and the education of the drivers has gone a long way to improve the driving in general. And this will only further be improved by the installation of landscape barriers on the Weber property.
Okay, thank you. I would just ask that, obviously going forward, you monitor that and, work with Weber to, to monitor those conditions and, do whatever you can to try to work together in harmony, I would say.
All right, thanks, Trustee Rosenberg. Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, I think my first question is for Charles. So Charles, is the petitioner abided by and or fulfilled all the prior conditions of the original PUD to date?
Just double checking. Yes, I mean, they have complied with everything as far as we understand all the conditions. There are still some conditions that apply that they are still responsible for going forward, and a couple that do require approval from Weber to be able to move forward with. So the outlet that I mentioned, they're required to take that outlet for the detention if Weber deeds it. The same with the repaving of the west half of the driveway, the west 22 feet. If Weber approves that, then they're required to pave that. So those two items have not happened yet. It's probably premature to pave that driveway until the construction is completed anyway.
Okay. So, but the detention agreement goes back to, you said 2002?
My understanding is it goes back to 2002. It doesn't impact the site. It doesn't impact the zoning actions. So our condition is just that Hamilton has to accept it if and when Weber, deeds that piece of property over.
Charles, do you know when, just for perspective, when did Hamilton purchase the property from Weber?
I believe there was an interim property owner. So I think Weber used to own both of those office buildings on the east side, the one that's been torn down and the one that will be. And then Hamilton purchased those properties from that owner. I'm not exactly sure when Weber sold those.
Okay. It's irrelevant. It just seems like a lot of this should have been handled, I think, when or a lot of these details may have, maybe it's in hindsight, it's easier to say that, but a lot of these details should have been kind of worked out back then before, when the properties are being sold. So I have some questions for the petitioner. When did PepsiCo move in?
PepsiCo moved in January 1.
And does PepsiCo use all the same drivers? I mean, are these the same drivers coming in and out?
For the most part.
What does that mean?
That means that occasionally there are new drivers that are employed or may come from different buildings that are relocated, but the vast majority of the drivers are making the same route on a daily basis and a weekly basis. So there's real benefit to having that familiarity with the property.
Agreed. But if there's a new driver, he becomes a regular driver, correct?
That's correct. What I will say is Frito-Lay takes both the safety and the satisfaction of the neighbor very seriously. And I think that is indicative of the change in the quality of driving that we've seen since all the videos that had the mid-January timestamps on them.
Okay. And, I would agree that with Charles that, the tenant, is ultimately responsible for their drivers, but the landlord is responsible for being a property owner and, getting their tenants to adhere to working with the neighbor is to not create problems and nuisance. Would you agree?
I couldn't agree more, which is why we've been in regular contact with Mr. Weber since the last meeting. And we're a local developer based out of Itasca. This is the first warehouse project we've done in Arlington Heights. We hope it won't be the last. We've had a good track record since we finished the first phase of the building. And I think some of the village employees could speak to that. And, we have a good reputation and we value that very much. And, we commit to ensuring that there isn't a problem and that drivers utilize the drive consistent with the exhibits that were originally approved.
Great. How long is the lease with PepsiCo?
I'd prefer to not comment on that. I don't know if Frito-Lay would like me to share that. I don't have a problem with it, but.
Well, you're changing the PUD based on this one tenant. I want to have an understanding of how long that might be.
It's more than 10 years.
Thank you. So when you say that the issues with the drivers driving on the neighboring property has been resolved or eliminated, you've witnessed that, or there's just been no videos? I'm just trying to understand.
Right. So I've witnessed it. So I've witnessed it, and I've also heard from Mr. Weber. Mr. Weber, I think, can attest to that. And like I've said, we've exchanged several emails on a weekly basis, and in his words, there hasn't been an issue.
What are the minor repairs to vehicles that are being done in the accessory building?
So oil changes, tire changes, the changing of transmission fluid, things of that nature.
Charles, so the reason I asked the question is I just wanted to make sure that I'm kind of understanding what's going to go on in that building. And then obviously the landlord and tenant are ultimately responsible for the environmental issues that come along with that. But what role does the village play in making sure that we don't have, liquids from, either the oil or the transmission or any other vehicle liquids, getting into the ground? I mean, how do we protect, because it's not a traditional gas station or automotive repair where there's, regular licensing and inspection. So how do we just protect the village?
Trustee Scaletta, I mean, whether it's operated by a typical, chain type, repair facility or independent by Frito-Lay, they would still have to follow, any of the EPA requirements for disposal of oils and materials and things like that. Our fire department does do inspections to make sure that there's not flammable materials and things of that nature. And then the village would do inspections. So, they will have to, comply with the disposal of oils through the normal channels, even though they're operating that facility themselves.
Thank you. Back to the petitioner. When did you say phase 2 will be completed?
Phase 2 should be concluded October, November this year.
And then Charles, you're saying that according to the conditions, then there's 2 more years before the road is rebuilt?
That's correct. One of the conditions is that by November of 2023, the east half of the 44-foot roadway on Hamilton's property has to be repaved. And then there's a condition from the original approval that requires Hamilton to repave the west half, which is all on Hamilton's property. Again, both of those are subject to Weber's approval because Weber controls the maintenance and repaving responsibility on the private access as we understand it.
So I guess the question is why 2 years out? Why wouldn't it be done sooner if the construction is going to be complete?
If I may, Charles, so I know that Sam has had conversations with Mr. Weber, and Mr. Weber has consented to the paving. So the village will see that paving depicted, assuming that we're approved on our permit sets of drawings. So we will do that as part of this construction to be completed by the end of this year.
So you would be okay with the condition being that it would be completed at before occupancy?
It would be done as part and parcel to completion. I guess the occupancy question is a bit nuanced in that they already have occupancy of a portion of the building. But our plan would be to complete that during the construction. So I guess if you wanted to pin a condition to it, we'd be comfortable stating that we would have the access drive completed prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit for the expansion. There's no problem with that.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to hear that because it seemed like we were putting it way too far out. And then the last question I have for petitioner, who's going to maintain the landscape islands?
So that's a really good question. As I understand it, Mr. Weber would like decorative boulders on the landscape islands, which wouldn't really require much maintenance.
All right, I have no other questions at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Trustee Schwingbeck.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor Hayes. So I just had a couple of questions for Mr. Waterlick too, in regards to that shared drive as well. So in our paperwork, you had indicated that auxiliary building will only be for Frito-Lay trucks. And when I looked at that video earlier today, seeing a lot of those semi-trucks moving in and out, some of them looked like they were not Frito-Lay Pepsico trucks. Are they also using over the road, Old Dominion, Landstar, other trucking companies?
They don't. So they do contract some of their drivers that then drive exclusively for Frito-Lay, but are not, I guess, technically employed by Frito-Lay. If you wouldn't mind bringing up the new site plan, Charles. I just want to make a point.
I guess the reason why I asked the question, if these were all, Frito-Lay employees and trucks, it would be very easy to train them versus having as Trustee Scaletta said, new drivers coming in and out of this facility all the time with them being with over-the-road contract lines.
I understand that point, and it's a fair point. What I would say is there's still, even if it's a third-party company, there's an abundance of carrots and sticks involved. Presumably those drivers would like to keep their job. And like I said before, even though they aren't necessarily Frito-Lay employees, they are driving regular routes for Frito-Lay. And Frito-Lay and both Hamilton Partners have gone through exhaustive efforts since Mr. Weber voiced his concern, and things have drastically improved over that time period. And the reason why I wanted to have Charles bring the site plan up, the real difficult maneuver, which is somewhat inconsistent with what was originally approved, relates to the parking lot to the south. And once the proper parking lot is in, there is a proper area for trucks to then maneuver, consistent with the truck movements that were originally approved by the village. So really, it's a stopgap, that is made for some more difficult maneuvers for the drivers. But with that being said, those movements have improved drastically since the education has, occurred between the drivers, Frito-Lay and Hamilton Partners.
Okay, and like I said, I personally, I worked for a company where we had, roughly 80 semi-trucks coming in and out daily, and they were all subcontract over-the-road haulers, and it's very difficult to control those guys. And there's also not a lot of haulers. They've all, blended together over the years. So we're really, then you're relying on Frito-Lay to be having conversations with those trucking companies to make sure that they're, being courteous to the neighbor. And that was really my only concern in the whole project.
Right, and I understand that, and I take that very seriously. I guess, in this, I'll say two things. So one, presumably, if this were not to be approved, there's going to be significantly more truck traffic, and there's a really good chance that the issue will be exacerbated. And I guess the other point that I'd like to make, which is the point I made before, is, we'd really like to do a lot more development in Arlington Heights. And, we take our reputation very seriously. Our headquarters is 10 minutes away, and, we stand behind our developments. So, we will continue to work hand in hand with both Frito-Lay and Mr. Weber to make sure that, everybody's satisfied and everything is safe.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Trustee Schwingbeck. Other questions from the board? Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. I agree. I think this is a good improvement over the original PUD. I think Mr. Waterlick and Mr. Weber will become good partners with everything that goes on there. The tenants will eventually learn all the rules, the landscaping islands that have been, or not islands, the edge landscaping with the boulders that'll be added will be an improvement. I really don't think there's any way to stop having the truck traffic on the other 22 feet. I mean, it's an easement, it has to be. But I think in the big picture, this is an improvement. So I would support this as it's presented tonight.
Okay, thanks, Trustee Tinaglia. Anything else from the board? I see Trustee Scaletta still has his hand up. John, did you have something else?
It was a mistake, sir.
Okay, no problem. If nothing else from the board, let me go to the audience for any other questions or comments. And I'm seeing nothing from the audience. So I'll come back to the board for hopefully a motion. Trustee Scaletta?
A lot going on with this computer. All right. So I would, Brandy, let me ask you a question, or maybe Hart can help me. You know, I want to concur with the Plan Commission's recommendation. However, I want to adjust the exact language so that I get it correctly. Over at Novus. When we get to condition, I know what it says, I'm just not finding it. The one where it takes us to
Condition 2.
Condition 2, there we go. So I want to concur with the Plan Commission's recommendation. However, in condition number 2, the access drive should be completed prior to the issuance of occupancy permit for the new portion of the building. Does that sound right?
So
It
trustees,
does not. I'm sorry, Randy.
I was just saying, Trustee Scaletta, so you're saying that the part of condition 2 that you would be modifying is, instead of saying this shall occur no later than November of 2023, and would require approval from Weber Packaging Solutions, you would say this shall occur no later than the occupancy of the building and would require approval from Weber Packaging Solutions?
Yeah, so it would just change it from November 2023 to the issue, you know, to prior to the issuance of the occupancy for the new building. You know, I mean, I guess, you know, if I made it to, you know, it has to be completed prior to December 31st, 2021, you know, if something gets held up where they're not able to finish the building by the end of this year, it kind of created a problem. And so that's why I was asking the petitioner if it could be linked to the occupancy of the expansion. Does that make sense?
Well,
Makes sense to me. I don't know, Hart, did you have any other comment on that?
No, I think that does make sense, and it's a good opportunity. You don't have the actual approval ordinance before you, so I think the appropriate motion would be to direct the drafting of an ordinance consistent with the Plan Commission recommendation and subject to that one change, Trustee Scaletta.
All right,
And
John, before you make that motion, we have some other hands up, so just
I see.
Yeah.
I'll relinquish the floor, Mayor.
All right, Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I guess I'm still a little confused, Trustee Scaletta, with your change because it is occupied. So would it be maybe an adjustment, like a final occupancy or something like that? I guess I just want to make sure it's clear.
So there's still a portion of the building that they need to build, correct, Charles?
That's correct. I think Trustee Scaletta, you're referring to prior to occupancy of the Phase 2 building?
Correct.
I think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because before it was going to be a much bigger building and with Phase 2, and Phase 2 is a smaller footprint of a building. And so I'm saying that prior to occupancy of the Phase 2 building, that the access drive would be rebuilt.
And I can go along with that. I just would add Phase 2 to the condition.
Yes.
All
Thank you.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Mayor, I think Mr. Weber had his hand up. But
Yeah, I was going to get to Mr. Weber.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
Yeah, so my only concern about just saying the occupancy of Phase 2 is that if that date falls at a time frame where paving wouldn't be allowed because of weather, you know, that may be problematic, that it may have to be deferred to the spring or something like that if that's the case. So I be a little reluctant to tie it to the exact date of the occupancy of Phase 2, you know, something maybe weather permitting or something, I don't know. maybe there could be some language added to that because I would hate to have them not be allowed occupancy because of weather issue with the driveway. So.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to Mr. Weber. Go ahead, Mr. Weber.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hayes. Just want to follow up with Mr. Perkins asked. Weber did approve the landscaping plans and the repaving of the road. We sent that to Sam Hubbard. The question regarding boulders is if you look at our side of the street, that's where the ComEd power line. So we really didn't want to put any sort of a tree that'll grow into the power line. So the design is going to be most likely something that'll grow short. And, Mr. Waterlick is correct. We've had some conversations and some of the more egregious truck maneuvers has been eliminated. They were backing into my guest parking lot every day, large semi. And I appreciate it. He's talked to them. It's been eliminated. Dropping a container or a trailer on the private easement on the private road, that had happened, and they leave it there, half a day. But the one area that has not changed is the traffic maneuvers. They are all over the road on the easement, and no matter what happens, we're not going to get away from the fact that these trucks are going to heck of a time doing a U-turn on their property. Going from the south to the north is a whole new ball game, and it changes the dimension of this PUD.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to this condition number 2. And does the staff have any suggested language that would be workable?
Yes, I think the general intent would be that the repaving occur prior to occupancy of phase 2, weather permitting. And if it isn't, then we would either issue a conditional certificate of occupancy that would require that, and that it would have to be completed in the spring if that were to be the case. Our intent would be to, if the board were to approve this, try to host a meeting fairly quickly with Hamilton and with Weber to try to resolve any final details on the landscape barriers so that they could be incorporated into the free-to-lay permit plans now. So that would eliminate that as well. But I think we can work with Attorney Passman on coming up with some language that would address a little bit of flexibility if we run into November. They're getting ready for occupancy and it's not quite ready to do.
What one wrinkle to add to that, Charles? I mean, if we said final occupancy, then that would give us the leeway, because it's not uncommon at all for us to issue a conditional occupancy permit, if we're waiting for final things to be done in the spring. If we said final occupancy, that should address the issue that Trustee Rosenberg raised, correct?
That's correct. I mean, we do have this issue all the time in October, November, especially with finishing sites, finishing paving, landscaping especially. And we just don't issue that final CO. It's got a temporary CO. And then when they complete them in the spring, then the business or the property owner gets that final CO.
So the suggested change would be, this shall occur no later than final occupancy of phase 2, weather permitting?
We would say the issuancy of a final occupancy permit is what I think staff would suggest.
Okay. Trustee Scaletta?
With all due respect to everybody trying to wordsmith it right now, Mr. Passman has suggested that make the approval while allowing staff to modify the language of condition number 2 and bring it back to us at the next meeting for our final approval. Okay, just so that I appreciate everybody working on it, and I'm so happy that this is going to be done sooner than 2 years after they complete the phase 2. So instead of me trying to repeat what you guys have been saying, I'm going to make a motion to concur with the Plan Commission recommendation and ask that staff rewrite condition number 2 based on all the conversations that have been had this evening regarding moving up the time frame.
Second.
Motion by trustee Scaletta, seconded by trustee Canty. Any further questions or comments from the board? Trustee Tinaglia.
All right, so let me make sure I understand. Are we gonna have to discuss this again?
No, it'll just be in the, it'll be in the motion when we approve the ordinance, right?
That's correct. We'll prepare an ordinance for your next meeting if this motion passes. For your next meeting, and you'll be able to vote on that ordinance. Obviously, if there are concerns about it, then you could discuss it further. But our goal will be to capture the intent of this conversation and have an ordinance that you're all satisfied with in 3 weeks.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, trustee Scaletta.
And the last thing I want to do is, I want to thank the petitioner for working with us and also working with Weber to, address the issues that they've raised. And I appreciate Weber working with the petitioner. At the end of the day, you guys are going to be side by side for hopefully many, many years. And we hope that you guys embrace our motto of City of Good Neighbors.
All right, thank you, trustee Scaletta. Well said. If nothing further then from the board or the audience, roll call.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
trustee Canty,
Yes.
trustee Baldino,
Yes.
trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Well, congratulations and good luck to you both. All right, there is no other new business. We'll move on then to the report of the village manager. Randy, anything other than the request for closed session?
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
All right, anything from the board under petitions and communications? Seeing none, back to the village manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I would respectfully request that we enter into closed session for 5 ILCS 120/2C21, discussion of minutes lawfully closed, whether for the purposes of approval of the minutes or the semi-annual review of the minutes, and 5 ILCS 120/2C11, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the village has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the court finds that an action is probable or imminent.
Is there a motion by trustee Baldino and seconded by trustee Tinaglia? Roll call.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
trustee Canty,
Yes.
trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. So we are adjourned into closed session. We will not be reporting back out. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right.